What's going on, everybody? I hope everyone is having a great NFL draft night so far to your respected favorite NFL teams. We had to do an emergency Canes After Dark NFL draft recording because, of course, our beloved Jaelan Phillips was the first defensive end taken in the NFL draft, going to the hometown team if you're from Miami, South Florida, or if you just love the Miami Dolphins. 18th overall. Before I get into that, guys, want to talk about the first official sponsor of Canes After Dark, approved for loans.com, guys. If you're looking for approved loans in Florida or Georgia, these guys got you covered, man. If you're looking for a mortgage, go out and call Derek. He is a diehard Miami Hurricanes fan. If you're in the state of Florida, if you're in Georgia, who else to call than Derek from Approved for Loans? These are diehard Miami Hurricanes fans, and you got to be loyal to other Miami Hurricanes fans. So go out and contact approvedforloans.com and reach out to Derek. He is your go-to connect to get your loan approved and get your mortgage on whether you're a first-time home buyer, your second home, whether it's investment property. Go out and call those guys. And once again, they are diehard Miami Hurricanes fans. Approvedforloans.com. This segment is presented by them. All right, guys, let's get into it. We got some diehard Miami Hurricanes fans with us. Once again, emergency Canes After Dark segment. We may even get some other fans in here. RC, you're a diehard Miami Hurricanes fan. You and me were talking before the show about Bob Greasy, Paul Warfield, Mark Layton, Nat Moore, the golden era of Miami Dolphins football. What are your thoughts about Jaelan Phillips staying in the same home stadium and going to your beloved Miami Dolphins?
I think he's going to make an immediate impact on that defensive line. And one thing that the Dolphins have needed is a consistent rusher and someone that can play well against the run and someone that can go ahead and take advantage of mismatches on the opposing offensive line. The guy can kick in a little bit. He can play out far on the edge. So he's so versatile that I think he's going to give the Dolphins an immediate impact. He doesn't have a lot to learn in terms of technique wise. I think that's kind of overstated. We were talking about his heavy hands. He's such a strong guy at the point of impact. If you look at him against the offensive tackle, who's going to go in the first round later on here from Virginia Tech, that's how dominant he can be on time. I mean, that guy won his fair snaps during that contest, but he's so explosive and so strong. I think he's going to be in the mix very soon here come September.
And RC, I mean, you and me were talking about, you mentioned he gained like what, 25 to 30 pounds of muscle when he was kind of in that off-season stage, just getting ready for his really, his last year of college football per se, because at UCLA, I mean, he merely played. So this was really his full year of college football. So the transformation was incredible. I mean, he was going to retire from the game, focus on music. This was really a comeback story. I mean, this could be a major motion picture film if they want to pull some strings on this.
You got the potential for that, no doubt about it. And you also look at, his buy-in from the very beginning when he visited and he committed. His buy-in with Coach Feely. It takes a special athlete, a special person to be able to endure all the things he endured. When you're the number one high school player in the country, and it's a consensus number one player, all right, there's a lot of pressure there. And then you go off the transition from high school to college, and that's a tough transition, especially with all the pressure that's on you, that you place on yourself, that the fan base puts on you. Very difficult set of circumstances, and he had some bad breaks. Walks away from the game, retires, and somehow is able to give it one more shot. But he gave that one more shot, and he gave everything he had from the beginning. And that's a professional mindset that a lot of people need to understand was very much, I think, in the play here with the GM of the Dolphins, Chris Greer, and selecting him. The performance on the field was there, but it's that mindset, the buy-in. It's already like he's a true professional, and he comes from a very well-educated family. Father's a lawyer, I believe, and you could tell that he, in terms of being an academic, All-American, ACC, first-team All-Academic, the kid is pretty much all about business and performance. Guys like that understand what the bottom line is. You got to perform. and they'll do whatever it takes. So I think that was a big testament when he put on those 30 some odd pounds of muscle in less than 16 months. That told you all you needed to see. And before COVID last year, think about it, guys. Before COVID last year, I think the media was out there 2 or 3 times. And everybody to a T that was out there in the media, in the local media said, who's that dude? That's an NFL dude. And when you hear that, I mean, you could tell he was just in the right situation at the right time. He took advantage of the opportunity. So very impressed with Jaelan, to be honest with you guys.
Ross, what are your thoughts? I know you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, but you are a diehard Miami Hurricanes fan as well. So, I know you're not the biggest Dolphins fan, but what are your thoughts about this pick overall and Jaelan Phillips as a player moving on to the NFL ranks?
The draft pick makes a ton of sense. I mean, an area of need. We're talking about a guy with incredible upside. RC hit on some great points. I mean, you just don't see guys like Phillips all the time. They just don't happen all the time. Seeing him right around this, 20th pick or so, that didn't shock me at all. I felt that he would, be between about 15 to 20. So this makes sense to me. I guess the big thing for me with this one, and I think why NFL teams will love this guy so much, is because of what he showed, that resilience, that fight, that passion to get back in the game of football, and not only get back in the game, but to be the best that he could possibly be, to put himself in the first round of the draft. That's the kind of stuff that stands out to NFL GMs and coaches, the special traits, the things you just might not get from every single player. And I think that the Dolphins fell in love with that. And I think probably multiple teams did. I think the Dolphins were just the ones who were in the right position to take advantage of it. I also think from a marketing standpoint, this is fantastic for them. He's already got a fan base built right in the city. Guys love Phillips. Canes fans absolutely love Jaelan Phillips. I'm pretty sure that this is just nothing but a home run pick for them all around. Yeah.
And you made a great point, Ross. This is an easy transition for Jaelan Phillips. He's playing in the same home stadium. Wherever he was staying at Miami, like he's familiar with the area as well. I mean, it's not going to be a hard transition. I hate comparing other players, but take a guy like, what's his name, Zach Wilson, the quarterback from BYU. He gets drafted to the New York Jets. He's going to play in the Meadowlands, which is in New Jersey technically. But I'm sure he's going to have to buy property in Manhattan or Brooklyn, wherever he wants to live in the boroughs in New York City. I mean, you take a kid from, I don't know what state he's from, but from BYU to New York City. I mean, that's a rough transition right there. And the New York media is very rough on players. They demand success, specifically at the quarterback position. All eyes are on you. They expect results right away, especially the New York Jets. I mean, that is a tough organization to play for. They're not very successful by all means. I'm not taking a shot if you're a New York Jets fan, but hey, the proof is in the pudding,
We
guys.
don't
I
mind.
mean, exactly. Dolphins fans don't mind at all. But I mean, it's a very easy transition. I think this is a great get. And Brian Flores, once again, RC mentioned it. He comes from that Bill Belichick organization. His defensive system is going to work great with Jaelan Phillips. So I think this is ultimately a recipe for success.
And I think the best thing that Jaelan does have is he's got the buy-in factor. No matter what he's going to be asked to do, he's going to do because he wants to be successful. Ross was talking about earlier. The guy has totally put his mind to it, and he's going to be the best that he can be. It's not about being as good as this guy or that guy. He wants to be the best that he can be. And when you got a guy like that, no matter how much money's going to come his way, he's well grounded. Great parents, been brought up the right way. He's kind of old school in some of the things that when you talk about him, he's kind of old school in the way he thinks a little bit. He's artistic and all that, but he does understand the value of the work ethic and the consistency factor. So, man, I think the transition, like you guys are talking about, won't be much of a transition in terms of the environment. It's just going to be football, football, football. And, the outlet will be music for him like it always has been. But, man, he's a perfect fit.
By the way, that national ranking he had in 2017, he was ranked ahead of. He was number one player in the nation. Number two was Chase Young. former first top 5 pick going to the Redskins in the past year NFL draft. By the way, fun fact, DJ Johnson, former Miami Hurricane, transferred to Washington, who's now a tight end in their system. He was number 6 overall at defensive end. So just shows you, sometimes rankings, they're right or they're just completely off. And this kind of, I want to transition to my next kind of topic for you guys. J.C. Horn, 4-star recruit out of Alpharetta, Georgia. His primary recruiter and cornerbacks coach was Travaris Robinson, who is now the defensive backs coach at the University of Miami. I mean, hey guys, I think we got the right guy at staff at the University of Miami. I want to touch up on that, Ross. I mean, what do you think? I mean, Travaris Robinson landing another first-round pick. He's got over 10 players right now that he's coached and developed and recruited in the NFL. How big of a statement was that tonight on Travaris Robinson's end, who was there at J.C. Horn's draft party? Tell us, to the Miami Hurricanes fans, how big of an impact this is going to be.
To me, this is a big impact for the simple fact that this shows consistency. To be able to do this at a consistent basis is very, very important. You talk about guys like Corey Raymond, guys who have been doing it year after year, putting talent into the NFL, first, second, third round type of talent. T-Rob is working his way into conversations like that. He's got a little work to do, don't get me wrong, but he's working his way into conversations like that. I'm impressed. I mean, if you had to ask me, Horn was actually my favorite cornerback in this class. He was the most complete. He's the most NFL ready from week 1, in my opinion. And I think that just completely speaks to T-Rob's developmental process and his ability to pick out the talent that fits his system. I think this is just a fantastic thing for him all around.
RC, what do you think?
Well, T-Rob is someone that we've talked about on this show many a time about how impactful he is. But I think we always emphasize his ability in terms of the recruiting component. And we really never gave him much credit, or maybe we just didn't highlight it enough, what a quality teacher he is. Now, listen, I've always told you guys how Mike Rumph is a tremendous teacher. I mean, he's had NFL overtures. Those things really happened. They're not fake. They happened. But when you look at what he wasn't good at, I think T-Rob brings all those things into play and makes us a contender. And every high-level, impactful 5-star kid that he wants to get involved with, we got a shot because he's got a proven track record. I mean, if you look at all the kids he's produced, even the ones that haven't been first rounders, the ones that he's coached that are still in the league, that confirms what type of quality teaching he is going to provide for these kids and their development. So it's not just identifying them, it's developing them. And I think he's the guy. I think Manny Diaz, he really got lucky in getting T-Rob. And I hope our Golden Canes, I hope our administration is not going to play the stingy game and pay that guy what he's worth. Because from what I've heard, his contract is light.
By the way, guys, JC.
T-Rob wants.
Go ahead, Ross. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, if T-Rob wants to keep this same story going, he is about in the most perfect opportunity to do it. To be able to come to a school like Miami that has access to elite recruits, hasn't been able to get them, had past success in the secondary, to be able to revive that, to me, it just goes right along with the whole T-Rob story. I mean, it's just absolutely perfect. And if he shows he can do it here in year 1, watch out, guys. I mean, just watch out. It could be something special.
By the way, J.C. Horn was going to add, 4-star recruit out of Alpharetta, Georgia. It's not like this was a 5-star talent that everybody and their mom was looking at. I mean, 4-star recruits, that is very, a highly touted recruit per se, but you still need to see if, you want to take your chance on a 4-star recruit. I mean, we've seen plenty of examples. I mean, Christian Williams is another example where necessarily he wasn't the primary take. Alabama dropped him from his class ultimately, and that's just one example of the many. But, we see a lot of examples where 4-star recruits and a lot of big-time SEC programs don't get those looks. They don't get those offers. So credit to Travaris Robinson for identifying J.C. Horn out of Alpharetta, Georgia, and taking a chance on him and seeing, his talent. Because 4-star recruits, ultimately, they don't equate to a first round top 15 pick, ultimately. So it's pretty impressive that he was able to identify that. And he's continuously identifying NFL talent. And I expect him, with this upcoming class, to identify a lot of NFL talent in the future. And I think the sky's the limit for this class that we have coming up. So I'm very excited. I know we only have one recruit committed right now, but look out for June and July. We should make a lot of noise in that department.
And don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if the J.C. Horn is the kid from American Heritage, Spells, who's pretty much, is now being ranked primarily as a cornerback, not just as a wide receiver and an athlete. As a cornerback is pretty much where he's going to go. And he's the local guy that I really feel has the biggest upside, that can totally be the first primary impactful recruit, South Florida recruit, that T-Rob gets in, develops, and puts in the NFL. I think he'll be the next one. And a little side note here on J.C. Horn, guys. He didn't get his 4th star till late in the process. He was primarily a 3-star kid, okay? Initially, and for the most part, at the end, he got his 4th star. But T-Rob found him early on.
No, 100%. Yeah, that's very true, because a lot of these 24/7 sports recruits, they get that bump late in the recruiting process. So, to RC's point, I mean, he was very under the radar recruit, and they gave him that late bump, and that's probably because he committed to an SEC program. Let's be real. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I love how you mentioned Jacoby Spells out of American Heritage Plantation. We've had our struggles in that high school, which, to be fair, it's basically a modern day St. Thomas Aquinas Senior High School, with the amount of talent and just college programs going out there and picking off recruits. So, if Miami can get their way with Jacoby Spells and slowly build a pipeline there, Miami, I think the sky's the limit for that program, and we'll slowly get back maybe to the promised land. It's a very long project, but it's a good starting point, I think. And we haven't talked about one other Miami Hurricane who right now still hasn't been selected, but we're very well know about him, Gregory Rousseau, and we spoke about him off air, and we thought athletically, ceiling wise, he's up there with the best right now in the first round, and he could be very taken well right now while we're recording. We're still in the process. I think they've gone through 20 picks so far. But guys,
Correct.
where do you think Gregory Rousseau kind of leads off right now?
Well, we're at pick 22. The Titans don't really need a defensive end or a pass rusher. At 23, I know that coach was a defensive genius, has always been a defensive guy. He was not happy with his defense this past year in the NFL. And I wouldn't be surprised if Greg Rousseau is pick number 23 in this draft. I don't think he'll go at 24. Najee Harris, I do think, will be the Steelers pick at 24, guys. But at 23, don't be surprised if it's going to be Greg Rousseau for the Vikings.
Ross, what do you think?
The fact is, Rousseau has got question marks. And for all the hype, for all the upside, for all the greatness that we saw as a freshman, when you've got question marks, you fall a little bit in the draft often. It's just something that happens year after year. Does it necessarily mean a big fall? No, not in Rousseau's case. He's a special player, special talent, upside through the roof, whether inside or outside. But that's the issue he's going through. His body type, adding that new muscle, not having any game film at his new weight, and having to prove to these teams at a pro day whether he's useful on the inside or useful on the outside more. It's not an easy thing for NFL teams to have to decide, honestly. And to take a guy in the first round, you kind of want to make sure that you nail that pick, whether it's 1 or number 32. That whole first round, you want to nail it. We all know Rousseau has first round NFL talent. That's just not a question in my mind whatsoever. If he falls to the early second round, I will not be shocked. And I've said this to Canes fans before. I kind of got some grief for it, and rightfully so, I think, because we truly know how special he is. But when you got questions, sometimes you just fall a little bit further than you should.
No, I 100% agree. I think Gregory Rousseau will have an outstanding NFL career. Once again, I truly believe he has one of the highest ceilings in this NFL draft. And any team that does pass on him that has the opportunity to take an edge rusher, I think he's the next man on the board. And, I think they'll be second guessing themselves if they don't pick Gregory Rousseau. So I'm curious right now if the Vikings do pick Rousseau, and we'll find out shortly.
And you look at that organization, they've brought in so many pieces on the offense. Then with the big contract for the quarterback, the free agent quarterback, the kid from Central, from Florida State, I forget his last name. He plays running back over there. So you look at them, they've done well on the offensive side of the ball. They've done well with South Florida kids in the past, going back to Anthony Carter and players of that nature. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he is the pick. But again, you're looking at fit. Where's the fit? Ross makes a great point. Is he really an inside guy? Not really. Is he primarily just an edge guy? Well, he's really long. He's really big. And you look at the frame, how much more weight is he going to put on? Is he going to be the stature of a Calais Campbell? And I think smart GMs see such a young kid, such an unpolished young man, that the potential for him to grow into a Calais Campbell is right there. And think about it. How many GMs passed on Calais Campbell that year? He dropped to number 50, right? He was the second pick. So you think about it. If they had the chance to do it all over again, they would have picked him probably second in that draft and Tom Brady first. So who was a fifth rounder, if I'm not mistaken. So it's right there. It's for them to go ahead and take a look at. And like Ross mentioned, they're going to be sorry if they don't pick him in the first round, because this guy is a legitimate nightmare. When he puts everything together, he is a legitimate nightmare for opposing offensive lines. You've got to scheme for this guy. Guys that you have to scheme for, and they're just learning. Those are guys that can create a lot of problems for a quarterback. I'll tell you that much.
We're at the stage of this draft right now where Gregory Rousseau is supreme value. I mean, and I don't say that lightly. I say supreme value with the upside that he possibly offers in the NFL. You could be looking at a GM right now sitting back and kind of just smiling and just going, man, we just got a steal in this draft, knowing they got a possibly borderline elite talent.
He's right there, Ross. I mean, you're making a great point. He is right there. You can't teach length, size, explosiveness. You can't teach those things. And he's got instincts to find the ball, to go get the ball. I mean, you can't teach those things. The kid that the Colts took at 20, I believe, the kid from Michigan, grand total 6 sacks in his Michigan career. I mean, are you serious? And you can see that Greg has tons of room to grow. That kid from Michigan, he's pretty much a finished product, similar to Jaelan. I mean, they're not going to get that much bigger and faster. And this kid has such a ceiling. He's not even close yet. So it makes no sense to me why he hasn't been taken yet. But again, we're not working on the other end over there, so we really don't know what's going on.
Let's see. Last time 2 edge rushers were drafted was NC State, I believe, in 2004. Their defensive line coach was Todd Stroud. Miami's defensive line coach this past season was Todd Stroud. So we'll see if that statement does become true later on tonight or in the next 5 minutes. Guys, I want to talk to you about this subject because Shannon Sharp, he tweeted this out, and I thought it was a very interesting point. 6 out of the top 10 picks in the NFL draft, and there was probably plenty more afterwards, came from the SEC conference. We just saw in soccer. I don't know if you guys follow soccer. I like sports in general, so anything about sports I'm always going to follow, just the competitiveness of it. They try to create a super league. In my opinion, this is your modern day super league, the SEC conference. Do you think this is normal in modern day college football to have so much talent come from one conference, something I've never seen before, dominate in college football? Do you like it, or what's your opinion on this? A lot of thinking.
Sorry. I mean, I had to think about it before I said something. Sorry about that. I really had to.
No worries at all. It's an interesting topic.
Things that yeah, I mean, there's certain things that you want to touch on, and there's certain things you don't want to touch on. But the fact is that the question has to be asked. Has all of this simply been allowed to happen? Was this not chance? Was this not coincidence? Has the NCAA simply allowed the SEC to get away with more stuff than schools and other conferences are doing? And
100%
we are
agree.
reaching a point where that question has to be asked. And it's the NCAA. Good luck getting a straight answer from them. But there needs to be a lot more pressure put onto it, and there needs to be a lot more focus on it, because something just ain't right, guys.
There's a lot of speculation out there as to certain schools. I'm not even going to mention what conference, okay? I'll let people interpret this statement as they need to interpret it. But there's a lot of history here in South Florida of I'm not even going to say McDonald's bags, right? There's an SEC. Oh, did I just say SEC school with McDonald's bags? Anyway, there's a history of that here. History of middlemen involved. We could call it what we want to call it. I just find it interesting how certain kids, they get to campus and 2 weeks later they have a brand new car that is a top end car. I'm surprised that all of a sudden parents relocate to certain towns and they're making six figures all of a sudden when they've never made six figures before. There's a guy here that played quarterback, and he went to some school in the South, and the NC2A finally found out that he was getting paid, and his parents were getting paid from some supposed job at a hospital through a charitable fund. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. And if we sneeze without asking permission to sneeze, it's a major investigation here in Coral Gables. I mean, talk about your double standards. I mean, I don't know what other proof you have. The extreme that was taken against Reggie Bush at USC. Oh, yeah, you had to take away his Heisman and everything. Really? I mean, talk about the hypocrisy that goes on. It's ridiculous. And now we finally get one method to go ahead and be able to take care of our kids here in the state of Florida. And at the last minute, the legislature today put in some bill that had nothing to do with the name, image, and likeness component that our governor signed into law last year. They put in this clause that it won't start this year; it'll start the following year. So you think about it. What is that year? Who's going to benefit from that extra year? Because Miami was ready to go; they had all their ducks in a row. I know Florida State had their ducks in a row too, with their NIL policies and procedures and program. But for some reason, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, Manny Diaz was definitely banking on this image likeness bill to kind of give him an upper hand to counter this SEC madness we're seeing right now that's going on, whether it's under the table kind of finances that are being played. But obviously, I mean, it's well known there's definitely a dark side to recruiting. And whether the NCAA is just kind of turning their backs on it, I don't know. I know legally in the state of Alabama there is a way to buy a car for $1. Legally in the state of Alabama, that is true. You can buy a car for $1. I don't know kind of the legality aspects, whatever you want to call it, behind it, but you can pull strings to purchase a car for $1 in the state of Alabama. I've been told that, and it's valid. So that's one way of kind of a scapegoat to kind of say like we're legally doing this. But no, I 100% agree, and hopefully it does get approved, the image likeness bill, and it'll be in the appropriate date it was signed for. Or I'm not really going to get deep into the political thing into it, but hopefully
Right.
they stand by their word and they follow through with it, and it'll help the University of Miami, and not only people focus on the University of Miami because we're fans of it, but the entire state of Florida as well. We're banking on this bill, and by all means, state of Alabama, they even came out their own image likeness bill, and California as well. So it definitely will be, definitely a big strike in the program at the University of Miami. Even Blake James made a statement, Manny Diaz, De'Ara King. So a lot of people were disappointed, and hopefully it does fall through. But we'll see what happens moving forward. Ross, anything else you want to add up on that subject?
Just simply enough that whatever the heck's going on, I can't trust the NCAA, and I don't know many people that do. And that's the problem, guys. we shouldn't have to be so in the dark with so many things that we know belong in the light. We know certain things should have been addressed. We know certain things should have been handled in different ways. And to see them basically put on the kid gloves whenever it's time to deal with the SEC, it's just frustrating as all heck. I mean, it just is. Imagine, I'm not even going to say winning a national title game, but just imagine if we had won a bowl game and one of our former NFL players had came down onto the field and started handing out crisp $100 bills to our players. Just imagine that. I mean, even though there's ways to talk around that and say it's not a big deal, oh, you can best believe the NCAA would make that a big deal for the University of Miami. So I would love to start seeing things happen fairly. But like I said, I just simply don't trust the NCAA enough to make that happen.
And you know what, Ross? Not only the NCAA, how about the media? I mean, when this whole Nevin Shapiro scandal came out, it was cancel the University of Miami football program round 2. Without even inquiring about a final verdict, they were ready to jump on the University of Miami because you know what? People hate the University of Miami for what it stands for. The media hates us because we were the bad boys of football. We created the unsportsmanlike conduct rule. We broke the rules and we won. And nobody likes people who break the rules and do whatever they want and clown you and make fun of you. I wish I could curse. I will. The assholes. Nobody likes an asshole who wins. And that's what Miami was. They were the assholes who won in college football and dominated, slapped you in the face, called you every name in the book, and beat you by 20 or more. That's why they hate us. And it is what it is. I just hope Miami can get back to those glory days and without getting sanctioned or by any violations from the NCAA or any other scandal going on. Because Nevin Shapiro was really watered down. I mean, it was really overblown. 100%. And by the way, Donna Shalala, at the same time, I mean, she did. I mean, it's been documented. I mean, there's a picture of her with Frank Haith, our former basketball coach, taking a check from Nevin Shapiro as well at a bowling alley in Miami. So, I mean, he was welcomed into the program. Now, I will say this: Randy Shannon wanted nothing to do with Nevin Shapiro. I tip my hat off to Randy Shannon. He knew from the beginning this guy was trouble. And I respect Randy Shannon a lot. I thought he was the appropriate football head coach at the time, and I thought he had the ship moving in the right direction, and I thought he did things the right way, and I
Can you
appreciate
imagine,
that.
Paul, if Randy had the financial backing and support and the interest from the school administration to do what we have done the last couple of years, the last 4 or 5 years. Imagine if he was able to retain a quality defensive coordinator who wouldn't have tripled his salary by leaving here and going to Oklahoma State. Imagine if there was buy-in from the very beginning for Randy Shannon. And if there was, I think he's still our head coach right now. Because if you're able to go ahead and pick the right people and pay people what they're deserving, then you've got a shot to be really special. He was doing things the right way. Our kids were graduating. Our kids were out of trouble. Our kids were doing exactly what they needed to do. There were some questions on the field, performance, no doubt. No doubt. There was a lot of the prima donna mentality with a lot of our kids. You just put the jersey on and magically you're an all pro. You know, that there was a lot of issues with that. But in terms of what he was doing, how he was doing it, he did not have the support of the administration. And that's sad because he definitely deserved it, guys.
Ross just put in a comment: 6 Alabama players in the first round alone. That is insane. I don't know if Miami still holds the first round record of
No,
7. They don't anymore.
Was it 5 or 6?
I thought it was 7 we had in the first
I
round.
thought
I
we were
could be
6.
wrong. Okay, it could be 6. Around there. We're around there. But listen, Alabama, they're basically doing things what the old one Miami Hurricanes were doing. Someone tweeted out today saying, "Hey, that's 6 players Miami doesn't have to face," and I was like, in my head, I didn't respond to it. I just said, well, they reload at Alabama. They'll have 6 more next year. That's the thing. So want to touch up a little bit early on that Alabama game. Miami better be ready to go. That's all I'm going to say. They better be ready to go. And just you can't make any mistakes because Alabama, they've been in this spotlight. This is a routine game for them. And they don't care if you're Miami, Florida State, whatever program you represent, they're going to slap you in the face. They're going to be ready to play 4 quarters of football.
You're catching them at the right time, though. You've got a lot of turnover, not in terms of the starters on offense and on what they lose on defense, but you're also looking at turnover, the coaching staff, the coordinators. So
Yep.
this is the right time to play them. And for the first time, we've got about 84 kids in uniform right now.
Yeah, first time in a while.
So like Manny, Coach Diaz was mentioning a couple of weeks ago after the scrimmage, hey, this is the first time we were able to have three specific teams. First team, a second team, and a third team. So that was the first time they've had that during a spring football session that they've had the last couple of years since he's been here. So the numbers are there. But the ultimate question is, it's not just how big the numbers are. It's not just the quantity, it's the quality of kids that you have that can immediately come in and play. And that's why we've got to start talking now. When are we going to start hitting the transfer portal? Because all the spring games are pretty much over now. It's time to go ahead and get out there and get some difference makers in the areas where we're weak. And we're not there yet, guys. And that's where we need to be.
I love the term that Paul used, and it's a term that I've been using this whole time. Alabama doesn't rebuild, they reload. They will be ready week 1. Their guys will be ready to take Miami head on and prove that they are still one of the top 3 teams in the nation. I mean, that's Bama football every single year. It's not about being a top 10 team, necessarily even top 5. That's top 3 football with the ideal season, of course, year by year being a national title team. They have a young quarterback, but we're talking about a very, very, very talented young quarterback. I mean, this guy is special. He's just flat out special. Yes, they're going to be, like you said, 6 players in the first round. That means something. It does mean something. That takes talent off the field. There's absolutely no doubt about it. It takes proven talent off the field is what it does more than anything else. Where we're at with Miami now and Bama, with all this talent leaving Bama, yeah, it might be a good thing, but it also leaves us a lot of question marks. We haven't seen a lot of these guys get big snaps. We don't have a lot of game tape on some of these guys, and we know how Saban treats it. He'll have those guys ready to play elite football right away. So we got to be prepared for things that we don't get to see on film, basically. Like, we might get to see guys who came in rotational duty and get, occasional snaps or even just direct backups. But I'm talking about the main snaps, the leaders of the units being on the field in the toughest situations, time in, time out, game after game. There'll be players on the field that we haven't seen with that kind of film, and they will be high-ranked 4-star, 5-star caliber players. We need to be ready for seeing something we haven't seen yet, and our coaching staff needs to be prepared to try to show Bama something that they might not have seen yet.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, because schematic wise, Bill O'Brien, I mean he's an NFL, head coach. He's going to bring an offensive scheme which is very complex in my opinion. I think it's going to be a testament to Manny Diaz taking over the defense, how he matches up with a former NFL head coach running the offense. You have a very good, talented quarterback with Bryce Young, who's very dynamic. I think very highly of him. This will be his first starting game at Alabama. He hasn't been named starter, but I'm predicting him as the Alabama quarterback. And his spring game, he showed flashes of an elite player. It wasn't the prettiest spring game on his end by all means. He made a lot of mistakes, but I'm sure they'll get a lot of things taken care of. But I think it's going to be a tremendous testament to Manny Diaz's defensive scheme and what he kind of cooks up with Bob Shoop and Travaris Robinson as defensive backs coach. So, and Jess Simpson seeing the defensive line as well. So, hey, I'm all for it. It'll be a program evaluator where how far or how close we are to the Alabama Crimson Tide.
But I think the biggest issue we have is addressing still the talent that we have in our major areas of concern, which are pass rush and linebacker. You don't have enough right now to be ready for Alabama, unless you're getting kids like a Toto, defensive end out of Missouri, guys like that can come in and play right away and be impactful. And right now, you've got a bunch of guys that what they can do. You know what Bradley Jennings can do. You know what the kid from Central can do. Wayman Steed. So you know what these kids can and can't do. They're not all of a sudden going to turn into a first round draft pick. There are issues there that need to be addressed. When our defensive end, who played like most of the snaps the other day, is a former linebacker in McLeod, you've got major question marks at defensive end.
Yep.
So we've got to get those needs addressed via the transfer portal now. And if you can't, you want to talk about cat and mouse, it's all going to be a chess match for Manny Diaz, because he's not going to be able to do the things that this defense normally does. And if you blitz too much, you know what's going to happen to you. So he's going to have to come up with some schemes. Yeah, you got to come up with some schemes to keep offenses at bay. A lot of change-ups, a lot of moving things around, moving personnel around. You've got to keep a young quarterback confused come first weekend in September. And if we don't have a game plan that's going to try to go ahead and take advantage of that, man, are we going to struggle in that game defensively?
And RC, you mentioned Henry Toto. I would love Henry Toto to come to the University of Miami by all means. I think he should be a first priority. Mike Farrell from Rivals, because I know people have been asking this question. Mike Farrell from Rivals stated his source inside the Ohio State program is the expectation they are going full court press on Henry Toto. So that's the favorite landing spot. If Miami's in the fight, they're still recruiting him, great. But right now, Ohio State, in my opinion, is the team to beat. So, and then plus Alabama as well. There was another report by Rivals stating that they're trying to make room for him. So, a lot of the big programs are going after Henry Toto, and we have shown a great resume of transfer portal players. So, let's see if the staff can pull it off. But in my opinion, I think he'll end up at Ohio State.
I think there's one advantage we have over all those programs is that you know what's there, who you're competing against. And at these other schools, you don't know who you're competing against, and they can't promise you that you're going to be a starting linebacker. Or I think we can all agree we can promise him he'll be the starting middle linebacker here.
Now, RC, what's your opinion on Jawan Mitchell not getting the nod in this class?
Well, it came down to exactly what we just talked about. He wanted to go ahead and know that he was going to be a starter, and that was not promised to him. And then the next day it was, well, I'm not even sure I know exactly what I have coming back. Playing games with top level proven commodities, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Unless we're not going to take any portal kids, because is going to continue to do things on the cheap, and they don't want to, scholarship any more kids, because we're at 84 kids as it is. And that's without the opt-out. So maybe they can't afford to have any more kids. We don't even know if that's really what the issue is here. But man, it makes no sense, guys. Guy like Jawan Mitchell's out there who's proven that kid is a quality tackling machine, sideline to sideline, does well against the pass. How can we not take a kid like that? Something doesn't make sense to me.
Ross, what are your thoughts about this whole transfer portal kind of thing going on this offseason?
I mean, there's no doubt about it that we need talent, and we need some talent that's going to be ready to play this week one game that we're talking about with Bama, not just the entire rest of the season, of course, but we need guys who are ready to line up week one and compete with some of the best out there. To hear how Mitchell described how it went down with Miami was confusing to me. And if it is 100% true, it's downright upsetting, honestly. It truly is. I mean, to just those words out of his mouth during a time when we all know we could use him for sure. And for him to go out of his way to just mention it how he did really stood out to me. It really, really, really stood out in bad ways, guys. The kid from Tennessee, I mean, if you're going to battle with Ohio State, hey, good luck. I mean, it just the way it is. I haven't heard much, if anything, that ever came from the possible transfer from USC. The linebacker there, that just kind of went nowhere, of course, which like a lot of transfer things have gone for us in the past when we start talking about them. But I guess, just to kind of reiterate again, Mitchell's words really bothered me a lot, guys. And I really hope maybe that there was a miscommunication along that way, and that's not what the staff said. But if that's the route the route that the staff went, it makes me a little concerned.
100% agree. Texas leading tackler as well. In my opinion, that's a take. regarding the circumstances, unless the coaching staff is still waiting and they have their eye on a couple players or one specific player in particular that still hasn't named himself in the transfer portal as well. So I'm curious how that plays out. Anyone you can think of, guys, or because personnel wise at linebacker moving forward, I think we'll be okay in conference play. But with the elite programs, if you want to win that ACC title game, if you want to beat North Carolina, if you want to compete with Clemson's and get over that hump, you got to bring in some reinforcements.
I don't even think we could compete well with our linebackers within the ACC, to be honest. I mean, you got guys who still don't know the system, and they've been here. I mean, one kid was here; he didn't play, but he was kind of an academic sitting out for a year. He was still around. He was still at practice. Then he had all of last year, and he still doesn't know the playbook. He still doesn't, he still doesn't know what he's doing. So you got one kid like that. You got the kid from New Jersey, I believe, who still is trying to figure things out. Then you got a kid that should be going to senior prime here, Chase Smith, that he went ahead automatically, and he played a little bit of a striker, and my goodness, the kid was everywhere. Then you got a kid like Keontra Smith who has some speed. Maybe he's going to struggle against the run, but man, he was able to go ahead and make some tackles in the open field. So you see where we're so weak at. We've got no speed at linebacker, and you can't defend the pass at all in this conference, in most conferences, Power 5 conferences, if your linebackers can't run and cover. And we really struggle, guys. So it's like, you don't need to continue looking what you have in the cupboard. It's pretty much, it is what it is. You've got to address that need or find a way to use smoke and mirrors and out scheme everybody. And that's hard to do because there's some great offensive minds in this conference.
The way I see it with this linebacker issue we got here, I see absolutely no reason to settle on a mediocre linebacker. We don't need to bring in the same problems that we already have. If it turns out to be nothing but mediocre options, I say just let our guys ride it out and let them get those valuable snaps and learn the hard way sometimes. They say feed them to the wolves or whatever you want to call it, but kind of take some bumps and bruises along the way. I would rather do that than settling for a mediocre linebacker from some other school who's just going to be part of the back end rotation or middle rotation, whatever we do with him. We need to go out and get a starter that can play that week 1 game versus Bama, or it's basically pointless, in my opinion.
Totally agree.
Ross, anything else you want to touch up on that we haven't spoken about so far in this segment?
No. I think we hit on a lot of good points there with the Bama stuff. I think we're all just really aware of the daunting task that we have in front of us, and it's why we've got so many questions and so many ideas and takes and stuff like that. It's because we know how big of a deal this really is.
No, 100% agree. It'll be interesting this upcoming season how things play out. It'll be interesting. We'll see. We got 5 or 6 picks left in the first round. What do you guys think? Rousseau gets drafted tonight, or we're gonna have to wait another night?
Man, I'm disappointed. I really thought he was a perfect fit in Minnesota, to be quite frank with you. I really thought he'd be perfect there. And then Cleveland passed on him. They need pass rush help to get somebody next to Myles Garrett. So I'm disappointed, man. I thought he would have gone by now. I don't think he might get picked up at all here in the first round, because if you look at the remaining teams, other than maybe Tampa Bay at 32, that they could use a young defensive end pass rush kid that can be developed. Other than Tampa Bay, I don't see anybody else with a true need at defensive end.
Kwity Paye was taken from Michigan.
Don't take my head off for saying.
I'm sorry?
Kwity Paye from Michigan was taken as an edge rusher to the
Colts.
Lions. But to the Colts, sorry.
Yeah,
21 overall.
It's very stiff. He's already peaked. He's not going to get faster or stronger. He is already. He's a finished product. But 6 sacks in 4 years, especially in the Big Ten, where come on, it's not hard to go and get a sack in the Big Ten. Let's be honest. One thing I forgot to ask you guys: what if De'Aaron King isn't ready to go against Bama? I'm sorry, I had to go back to that. But what if he's not ready to go health-wise? What do we do?
that puts us in a predicament that the staff, I don't even know if they even want to venture into quite yet, RC. Like I think that they want to just believe everything is on course and steady and everything's going to be just fine. I mean, so far it sounds like things are going as planned. But of course, like you said, you have to have a plan B option. We got a lot of time in between that spring game from what we saw with those young quarterbacks. But regardless of what we saw in that scenario, I would be extremely worried tossing either one of them out there. There's no doubt about it, especially if the offensive line can't get their stuff together before this Bama game starts.
If I'm the staff, I don't even announce it till game time. I just say, hey, Gregory, De'Ara King's not going to be ready to go tonight. I wouldn't even announce it, and they're going to throw in, they won't even announce who the starting quarterback is. Kind of everything will be closed doors behind the scrimmage, because you're not going to really see any tape or you have to study for both quarterbacks. But it definitely will be a very unique game for any underclassmen, redshirt freshman, true freshman quarterback getting their first starting job against the reigning national champions. So it'll be a welcome to college football. And I mean, hey, that's kind of your baseline. Where do you go from here? So be definitely it'll be another routine kind of title we see with Canes football, because it kind of brings me back to that Florida game we played in 06, Randy Shannon's second game after we beat Charleston Southern, and Ja'Cory Harris and Robert Marv were still splitting snaps, and it was a close game actually at halftime, and then through three quarters, a couple calls by the refs kind of changed the outcome of the game. But ultimately, Florida, kind of dwindled away with that score. I think it was final 26-3 in Gainesville, but it will remind me of that game, and I think we'll see flashes of success. But at the end of the day, I mean, true freshman against Alabama, beating the Crimson Tide in a 100% capacity stadium in Atlanta. You make a movie after that game.
I think the one guy that's ready to go right now, and he has no issues. He doesn't care whether he's got a protection or not. He just wants to play, and that's the kid from California. I think he's ready to go. I mean, I like Tyler and all that, but I think Jake's got what it takes. He's got the it factor, guys. And I know that we don't have the offensive line to protect him, but if De'Ara can't go, I think he's going to get the nod.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the staff really likes Jake Garcia. And he was handpicked by Rhett Lashley, and I think Manny Diaz as well. He never gave up on Jake Garcia, changing offensive coordinators as well. I remember I would peek into his Instagram posts and social media, and he'd always liked his post when he was committed to USC. And I think that was Manny Diaz's guy he keyed in on from day one in that class. And I think they really like Jake Garcia. And I think both can start at the Power 5 level and be very successful in the college football ranks. But I agree with RC. I think they'll roll the dice with Jake Garcia.
I wonder if our offensive line will be ready for that challenge, even if De'Ara is playing. I mean, are they going to be ready to go? If you look at some of the issues that our left tackle's having, they're all technique, man. There are a lot of technique-based things. He's just such a gifted athlete. He's able to go ahead and mask a lot of those issues, a lot of his flaws.
Yep.
And against this level of competition, he can't mask those things. And it's ironic how so many people are already saying, well, he's a potential first rounder next year. I'm like, dude, he still has to work on his technique. He's really bad at times.
Yeah.
He's just so gifted of an athlete, he can get away with it.
Well, hey, when I interviewed Brian McKinney, RC, it gave me a little bit of hope. He liked Garen Justice a lot, and he said Butch Berry. He didn't say his name directly, but he said Butch Berry was trash. So I'll take that, right?
There's a reason why Butch Berry was only in the NFL for 2 seasons.
There you go.
You can't fool those guys very long.
But anyways, guys, I want to thank you so much for taking time of your night to come on this emergency segment for the NFL Draft. Once again, this segment of Canes After Dark was brought to you by ApprovedForLoans.com. Go check these guys out. RC is already inquiring about apartments in Sunny Isles for his retirement home. Ross wants to move to South Florida. He's thinking Boca. So if you're in Florida, you're in Georgia, hit Derek up. Give him a call, diehard Miami Hurricanes fans, and hit up ApprovedForLoans.com. You won't regret it. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their night, and always all about the U. Go Canes.
Go Canes, baby.
Go Canes.
One. All right, we had to come back on. Obviously, we cut the show before the Bills had picked Gregory Rousseau in the NFL Draft. Miami, for the first time since I can remember in a very long time, maybe, Ross can help me out with this, but two defensive ends getting drafted in the first round. I know for a fact this is the first time since NC State, I think in 04, 05 roughly. Pretty unique situation. Todd Stroud was the head coach for both of these two defensive ends in college and at NC State. Um, Back with those both of those defensive end duos. But Gregory Rousseau, man, drafted by the Bills, late kind of pick, and addition to the segment we were recording because we didn't expect this at all when we cut the recording. But Ross, man, what do you think about this pick? I mean, huge get in my opinion.
Fantastic move by the Bills organization to be able to take a player of his caliber and upside late in the first round, which also gives them that extra year of club control on his contract if he does become that player they hope he does, because we know pass rushers get paid a lot of money in the NFL now. So to have that extra year is a big deal for a lot of teams. Bills have needed a player like this, honestly. This is exactly what that team has needed for a while. They had to start improving that defensive line if they wanted to start competing. My guess is that their GM and their head coach were probably sitting there smiling ear to ear when that pick came up and Gregory Rousseau was still available. I don't think that it probably could have gone any better for them in that scenario besides having to trade up to take him.
Look, he has all the tools to be an all Pro Bowl edge rusher at the next level. The blend of size, length, and top end speed that he has, I mean, it's ultimately it's a nightmare matchup for any interior offensive lineman when he kicks on the inside to any rush passer. I mean, outstanding pick. Once again, I've stated this several times on the segment. He has the highest ceiling to any NFL draft prospect on this draft. Any team that passed him, they took that defensive end from Michigan. They're fools. Whether it was the Indianapolis Colts, I think, at the 21st pick, Rousseau easily could have been a top 10 pick. He's going to be an all Pro Bowl at the next level. And it's great to see two Miami Hurricanes draft in the first round, man. Huge get.
I got a question for you now. Do you think that the Rousseau pick to the Bills, that was the best value pick in the first round so far?
Wow, great question. I really do, man. I really do because the upside he brings, man. He's such a unique player. Like, when do you have a 6'7" edge rusher that was playing safety at high school? I mean, Miami even lined him up at pass coverage at times. He's that athletic. This is such a unique prospect, Ross, that it really could be valued as a generational player. Generational prospect that you're taking a chance on. And I think the chance is going to be a great gamble.
The Bills being a good team already, this kind of falls into that saying of, the rich get richer kind of. I mean, like I said, for them to be able to sit back and not even have to move up to make this move happen, I don't think it could have gone any better for them. And I think that they will openly state that when they go to the media to talk about this pick.
Drew Rosenhaus, he tweeted it out. He said many NFL teams were inquiring about Gregory Rousseau being taken in the first round. I think the Bills were very surprised that he was left on the board, and they knew they didn't have to second guess this pick. They were going to take Gregory Rousseau, and it's a great day to be a Miami Hurricane. It shows the program is moving in the right direction, and hopefully, with the changes we've seen this offseason, first off, I want to give a huge shout out to Manny Diaz for evaluating both of these players because Gregory Rousseau was probably the least rated recruit coming out of high school that in the first round, I mean, literally under the radar 3-star recruit from Hialeah Champagnat High School. By the way, that high school is a very small high school in Miami-Dade County. It's really not a big high school at all. They probably play in 2A, 1A is their district roughly. It's a small school, and they're not known to be a high school powerhouse. Just recently, they've won multiple state titles, and shout out to Coach Clavijo, who's done a tremendous job there in creating that powerhouse and state title perennial powerhouse down at Hialeah Champagnat. So huge credit goes out to him. But, man, shout out to Manny Diaz for evaluating both of these guys, Jaelan Phillips and Rousseau. and Travaris Robinson as well, bringing him on board. Like we saw, I mean, he evaluated J.C. Horn going in the first round as well, under the radar recruit, 3-star recruit, gets that late push to a 4-star by 24/7 Sports out of Alpharetta, Georgia. I think we're moving in the right direction. We're evaluating talent. May not be the biggest stars out there, but we're going to evaluate the right guys. We're going to bring in the appropriate personnel, and we're going to develop those guys under our coaching staff, and we're going to win some football games.
We've got that prototype at defensive end now, and we're able to show that not only has that been successful in the college game, but now it's proving to be successful getting guys into the NFL. We've got Rousseau and Phillips both in the NFL in the first round out of our system directly. I mean, this is fantastic. And this should be a big eye opener for pass rushers in the recruiting game for us in the next 22 and 23 class.
Once again, man, great segment. We touched up on a lot of topics, man. It's a great night to be a Miami Hurricane fan. It always is great to be a Miami Hurricanes fan, but tonight's just a little bit better with 2 first-round edge rushers taken in the first round. Once again, man, approvedforloans.com. Hit up Derek, diehard Miami Hurricanes fan. Who else are you going to get your loan approved from? Get that mortgage set up in the state of Georgia or Florida by then some diehard Miami Hurricanes fans representing you. Approvedforloans.com. Please contact Derek. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their night, and always all about the U. Go Canes.
Go Canes.